Hey guys, Weep here. Welcome back to another video by VarietyMMOs. So today we're going to be doing a summoner class guide for Phantasy Star Online 2. The ult that we'll be using for this class guide will be a fighter, so you will be maining a summoner and ulting a fighter. So the things we'll be talking about in this video include intro and pros and cons, choice of weapons, helpful PAs, skill tree explanation and a link for skill tree to help you set up your skill tree. And we're going to look at some of the pets and talk a little bit about why some are strong and why some are not. So an introduction to the summoner class would be that the summoner class is a very strong class in every situation. So some pets are strong when it comes to AoE, some pets are strong at explosive instant damage, and other pets are stronger in other situations that allow you to be just great in every situation, be it solo play, team play, or speed damaging. It fills every category of attack, healer, and defender at the same time. So let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons. So as I just mentioned, you have amazing survival because you are a defender. So you have healing capabilities and abilities to raise your defense, and on top of that, your pet has abilities to prevent you from taking damage, and you'll be standing further away from most fights than a lot of people will. Because your pet is doing a majority of your damage, as you'll see here, you'll be standing very far away, and if you get damage, you also have a heal ability to bring your HP back up to full pretty much instantaneously. So because you have so many pets and they have different situational uses, after you've set up, you are very powerful in damage. There are some pets like Synchro that does really high damage, which takes a lot of setup, but you do insane single target damage. And then you also have Jinga or Wanda, which do really good AoE damage. And you can even use other pets if they just feel better for you, and you'll still do overall great damage while having great survivability. Due to this, you'll also be able to clear all content without any problems whatsoever. So some classes may not be so great leveling up solo because they just don't have the ability to heal, or they just don't have the ability to beat the bosses at the end by themselves. However, the summoner class clears all these absolutely no problem due to the fact you have heals, defense, have high damage, and most of the time and most bosses you don't even get hit because your pet will be taking all of the damage for you while you heal them. Unlike some games where the pet class, the summoner class, is kind of half done in the way that you've got some abilities and you're just not really as good as any other class, the summoner class isn't like that in pso2 because all round is a powerhouse in every way. So the fourth pro would be, due to the pet survival abilities, the pet takes all the damage for you, and the pet has an ability that actually prevents you from dying while the pet is alive. So this is actually really good for people that have higher ping or perhaps slower reactions. So this is a good class that does great in all types of content. It is more forgiving than a lot of the other classes in the game, because let's say for example you get hit by a bigger boss ability that you shouldn't have been hit by, your pet will put you into emergency mode where you will survive and give you about 5 seconds to heal yourself. So for people a little bit slower or perhaps not as great and want to still be able to do endgame content, the summoner is extremely strong in that category. So some of the cons would be the initial setup for the pets. So if you go into your pet section here, you'll notice that I have a bunch of different pets at different levels. They take a lot of setup because you need to farm a lot of eggs and level them up individually. So this actually takes a long time. Not only that, but going into the next con would be your candies. So not only do you need to level them up, you then need to get candies for each individual pet. And candies are not necessarily easy to obtain. Some of them come from easy to get locations, but some of them are actually really painful to get, and to get them for every pet is really a struggle. Not only this, but not all the great candies from Japan are necessarily in NA. So a lot of the things like getting 100% crit rate just isn't feasible in NA. So you kind of have to mix and match with whatever you can get, which is kind of a struggle initially. The third con would be different elements of pets. So for other classes, you can just put on a weapon and it'll have a light element to it. or a dark element. And as you can see up here, this enemy is weak to fire and air. So if you had a weapon that had that elemental, they would do extra damage. This is even stronger for the summoner class, because the summoner class not only does more damage, it also gives you more PP back, which is basically your energy to use more abilities. So having the enemy's weakness is absolutely crucial. However, when it comes to this class, your type is based on the pet. So this one's light, this one's ice, this one's wind, this one's fire. So for example, if you wanted a synchro, which is great at solo boss killing, you would want a fire, a light, and a dark synchro. So you can swap them over mid-fight to always be doing optimal damage. So to get your max elements on all your pets would require all the candies, the pets, and have them leveled up. So in all, it is a lot of setup time to get your perfect setup done. Much more than any other class in my opinion. Okay, so now that we've talked about the pros and cons, let's have a look at the weapon. So unfortunately, because the summoner class is supposed to come out in episode 4, which is basically a later content patch, and instead it come out in episode 3, we actually only have access really to one weapon right now, which is the basic weapon that you get, your harmonizer. So you just want to upgrade this weapon and just sit on it. Later when episode 4 comes, we'll get access to other weapons that will work with some pets, which will make more pets like insanely powerful. For example, synchro. There is one such weapon in Japan that every time you use an ability, the staff will also do damage, so it amplifies your damage depending on how quickly you attack, which is an extremely good staff that we don't currently have access to. Okay, so moving on from weapons, let's have a look at some PAs that are useful for your class. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, what are PAs? PAs are basically abilities that you go around and farm. So if you go into your disc section here, you go around the game and you grab these discs and you use them to learn your abilities. So we're going to talk about 5 that I would recommend for the summoner here. So first up would be Shifter. So Shifter is this ability here. So you can hold it to use it on some classes, but for this class, following this build, you don't have to. What this does is it makes you, your pet, and your party do more damage, assuming that they are in range. With this build, your pet will actually ask for you to use this ability, and when you do, it'll give it 20% more damage. So it's extremely important to the core build and will make more sense later in the video. Next up would be Rester. So Rester, which can be used to heal yourself, your pet, and your allies. Again, it is another ability requested by your pet, and it will make it so it gets more healing. Extremely important both for you, your pet, and your party, and it makes you both a DPSer and a support at the same time without losing DPS. The next up would be Zondi. So this is Zondi here, Lizondi. So this ability allows you to use PP and move quickly, for example. So as you can see, I'm able to move across the map really quickly. And this helps because a lot of things you'll be doing in this game is trying to clear things as fast as possible. So having a movement speed ability is extremely helpful. So there are 2 other things that you can have as well. These are optional, but something you can use. So here we have Zanburst. So if we hold it in and let it down, you'll see this circle on the ground. Anybody standing inside this will do extra damage. So when you have a 12-man party and you are up against a boss in a phase where its defense drops or you go to attack its face or whatnot, you can drop this down and do quite a lot of extra damage if everybody's standing inside it. I won't lie, this ability is extremely annoying because a lot of people won't stand inside it for I don't know what reason, but it's very, very annoying. Next up is Deband. So Deband is a defensive ability which will put a defensive buff on you, your pet, and any allies that are really close by, which is basically just a defense buff. So it is optional, but of course nice if people have it. Generally, there will be another class that uses Deband, so you won't always have to use it. You'll mostly be focusing on Shifter and Rester, because those are the 2 abilities to heal and to boost your damage as well as your pet's damage. Okay, so let's move on and let's have a look at the skill tree for the summoner class. Okay, so for the sake of not making the video run for 25 minutes, what I've done is I've put a skill tree together that I'd use, and both links are going to be below the video, one for the summoner and one for the fighter. What I would recommend is bringing up the link, and it should bring up this link here, and you'll have the points already all entered. The first thing you're going to want to pay attention to is the mag that you're going to be using is 200 melee for this build. This build is pretty cool, I think, and the only things that you could potentially change is putting 2 more points in Summoner's Mark and taking 1 out of Harmonizer and 1 out of Easy Sympathy and putting it in there. Or you can swap out some pet element resistance, so you can take this out and put it into Barrier if you really want Barrier, but I personally wouldn't recommend it because only 10% chance of not taking damage is 1 in 10 shots. That's not really going to save you very often. So bring up this, have a look through this, and have a look through each of the descriptions, and then if you follow this build, then you should be pretty good to go. Keep in mind that you need all of the skill points from your skill trainer to be able to complete this skill tree. Okay, so now that we've talked a little about the skill trees, let's talk about some of the pets. Again, we're only going to talk about some of the pets because it will run too long if we do not. So first up, let's talk about Wanda. So Wanda and Jinga are basically an evolution form. So this is Wanda, and its evolved form is Jinga up here. So as you can see, Jinga is significantly bigger, and Jinga is more focused towards damage. If you ask anyone about Wanda and Jinga, the very first thing they're going to tell you is that Jinga is better than Wanda. But the problem is that most people don't really actually play the class, and they just hear that and pass it on. So Jinga is better than Wanda, and they do have the same abilities. However, in NA, it's extremely hard or nigh impossible to get a high level Jinga, be it level 12 or 13. Because of this, a level 12 Wanda, which is easy to obtain, has more damage than a level 9 Jinga would. So if you only have a 9 Jinga and a 12 Wanda, the 12 Wanda is the way to go. Okay, so let's talk about a couple notable abilities. So first up is Wanda Break, or Jinga Break. Let's use Wanda for this. So here we have Break. So this does a lot of damage, and it's something you're probably going to be using on bosses if you're using Wanda on the boss, that is. It kills small groups of mobs extremely quickly, and low PP cost, so you can kind of spam it. This is probably my go-to ability for small mobs and for the bosses. Wanda Shock here puts a stale element on them, and it stuns them, so you do extra damage. It's really just a great tool for large mob packs. You really don't want to be using this on a boss though, as tempting as it is, because the PP cost is rather insane. But this is definitely your go-to mobbing ability on Wanda or Jinga. Next up is Slicer. So Slicer, I don't really use for damage. I use it for the sole purpose of bringing your pet back. It calls you back. If you don't have long distance love talent, you need to bring them back to put buffs on them to heal them. And it's also good for pulling them out of like big boss AoEs and stuff like that. So those are the 3 main abilities that I use on Wanda, and you'll be using those 3 abilities if it's Jinga or Wanda. So there's 2 other pets that I want to look at. So despite the fact that you have many pets, we're only going to be talking about 3 in this video. So next up would be, here we go, Marin. So Marin's main ability and objective is to effectively make itself faint. So by using this ability here, you can throw Marin or Melon at the enemy, and what it'll do is it'll explode, do a lot of damage, and then faint. So not only is this great for damage, but because it faints, it boosts the damage of your Synchro. So now that you have Synchro, its damage is buffed up, and Synchro is your go-to pet for single target damage like on bosses. So its damage is now buffed up, and now you have a bunch of abilities that you can spam in a particular order, which I won't go over here. And it does a lot of damage because it has a low PP cost, so you can hit them many times. And this is going to be your go-to boss pet. As I mentioned earlier in the video though, setting up your pets takes a lot of time, and you need candies and everything else. So at the beginning of the game, I would focus more on Wanda, because Wanda will get you through all of the content, and you'll use Wanda to farm eggs and candies and other things for your pets. So focus on Wanda first, and once you're satisfied with Wanda's damage and just what you can do, then move more into Marin and then into Synchro for your biggest damage multipliers. Okay, so now that we've looked at some of the pets, let's talk a little bit about the Summoner in general. So the Summoner is a little bit different, because when you kill an enemy, you're not really looking for weapons, you're actually looking for eggs. And you're going to want to they're going to be like little red circles. you're going to want to make sure that you always pick these up and go and check them out, because you're looking for pets with different types, and you can also evolve them. So for example, you have Wanda. If you go to the store on the main ship, you can actually use Wanda and and Jinga together, and Jinga will overtake Wanda and it'll evolve into the new class. So you don't get a whole new pet. Not only this, but at level 100, you need to go to your class trainer to evolve them. You'll notice here that my pets are set. For example, this pet's max level is 85. This one is 110. The reason for this is the stars. This is why a level 12 Wanda is more powerful than a 9 Jinga, because as you can see here, level 110 off of my Wanda, but my Jinga can only get to level 85. So the damage abilities on my Wanda are simply better because its level is significantly higher. Okay, so that covers just about everything for today's guide. Unfortunately, I could not cover every aspect of the summoner, otherwise this video would go on forever. But hopefully this information and other guides floating around will give you a solid input and solid understanding of the summoner class and all its advantages. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.